Hey, what's going on? My name is Tyson Bailey. I'm the founder and CEO here at Trend Advisor, where we help life insurance agents and financial advisors keep their pipeline full with retirement planning clients without spending a single dollar in paid ads. Now, I want to introduce you to one of my favorite advisors, Kara Stewart. Kara's been working with us for just over 3 years now and has been able to earn well over 7 figures in revenue as a life and health only advisor. Now, in this interview, Kara shares her story, how she got into the industry, how she's been able to set herself apart, and walks through how she's been able to see so much success. Now, as you're going through the interview and you're watching it, if anything resonates with you and you want to explore in more detail the system that we've been able to implement for Kara to help her see this success, go to chatwithtyson.com. You're going to get access to my calendar where you and I can have a brief conversation, see what your business goals are, see what you're looking to accomplish, and see if we might be able to help you. So without further ado, here's Kara. Well, thanks again for agreeing to do this. I know you're extremely busy.
Yes.
Which
But
is
I'm
always a
meeting
good
for you,
thing.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I want to thank everybody for joining us for the webinar as well. We're going to be keeping this very casual, just talking about, your background, what you do, how you set yourself apart and stuff like that. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A section in the chat box, and we'll try to get to those towards the end. So without further ado, Kara Stewart. So can you give us a little bit of a background? How did you get into the industry? What got you interested in it and everything like that?
Sure. Well, gosh, my career started 23 years ago, and I worked at Wells Fargo Bank while attending college. I was a personal banking officer then, and then I worked at Merrill Lynch for a period of time, and then I was a market maker of community bank stocks such as Bank of Petaluma, Exchange Bank, and Sonoma National. And then I worked for a decade at Vantrio Insurance Brokerage as the assistant vice president and manager of the financial service division. And then in 2010, I went independent. And what that did was truly give me the ability to work for my client and not any particular insurance or investment company. And I really have that independence is really important because Merrill Lynch, for example, has a box that they try to fit their clients into, where I try to understand what are my clients' unique goals and objectives, and I design a box around that.
Mm-hmm. Were you doing investment related stuff before you started working with Vantrio?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes, I did.
And you're life and health only now.
I am. However, I'm flirting with the idea of bringing that back into the practice. Maybe not necessarily me having that license, but somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I find that perhaps it would be best to make them a client first. So ACAT everything over and then do the plan from there. So that's kind of something I'm considering.
Yeah, gotcha.
I just find securities to be they're volatile, but also emotional and political.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's that's something that we hear quite a bit from the advisors, but it would be nice to have that as part of your toolbox just in case. Even like you said, even if you don't do it yourself, being able to get in with those clients. So with the type of solutions that you offer, like how do you usually package that to prospects coming through the door?
Well, I always try to understand what they currently have, right? And so I have a questionnaire that asks about literally everything, even mortgage positions, interest rates, payments, expenses, etc. And then I put them into a program that shows them status quo. So the first meeting would be, the first one's actually just introductory, right? Where I'm interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing me. The second one is where we're gathering the information, or discovery call, where I'm trying to understand all their information and what their goals are. I obtain tax reports, etc. I can actually analyze 1040s. And then so the third meeting is me starting out with, okay, here's what your future self looks like if you keep doing what it is you're doing. And then this is what I'm suggesting you consider. And this is the difference between the two, right? Like I'm always able to improve upon efficiency with regard to either tax planning or cash flow or just different things they just simply haven't heard of from the banks or the brokerage houses or the wire firms.
Yeah. Now, walk me through that thought process of going independent. That's got to be a pretty nerve-wracking decision, especially when because you're truly independent. You weren't going to work for a New York Life. You're not going to work for anybody in particular. It's like you going out on your own. How was that decision-making process for you?
Oh, scary as hell.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. It actually, to be honest, it was by default. My Vantrio decided literally overnight to eliminate my financial service division. And so literally everybody was laid off in 2009. And within 24 hours, I think I had about 8 different offers, and all of which I was considering. And then it was like, but what if I could go independent? And if it didn't work for whatever reason, I've got these fallback positions, but what if it could work? And then here we are, 13 years later, and it's working very well. So where I used to say, like, how could you, now to my former boss who I just invited to, have lunch with, I say thank you, because had you not pushed me from the nest, I wouldn't have realized these beautiful wings.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talk to me about that journey of like going independent. Like, was it easy once you started? Like, was it a lot ups and downs? Like, what was that like for you?
A lot of ups and downs. What I did initially was just reached out to because I was always generating the revenue for myself. Like, it wasn't like we had a lot of internal referrals. Property casualty agents, and no disrespect at all, but they are very territorial, right? Because any referral that you give is a reflection of oneself. So they want to make sure that it's not going to jeopardize their workers' comp or whatever for the bread and butter. So I got most of my business on my own through the networking efforts that I did. So when I first went independent, I just reached out to everybody I know. And of course, I'm a native of Sonoma County, so that's, quite a bit of people. And just simply said, the only thing that has changed is the name on my card. I'm still doing what it is I used to do, but actually I even have more freedom and flexibility.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it was a slower road, I would say, but it was one that just those relationships at the end of the day, that's all what it's always about.
Love that. Love that. And we've been working together for, it's been just over 3 years now, hasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So where were you at in your practice before we started working together?
Well, I certainly didn't have the digital marketing that you've done on my behalf. I think you've taken my LinkedIn connections from a couple hundred to, I think last look, it was like close to 9,000 or something like that.
That's awesome.
And so my distribution list is, correct me if I'm wrong, 5,500, 6,000 maybe. And that represents people that have somehow engaged in some way, whether that's responding to a LinkedIn message, or they've opted in to receive a report, or they've requested my book. They're somehow wanting some additional information. So those are really warm leads. And you've been able to come up with campaigns that I think have been very successful. And what I think makes you unique is that you spent time in our industry. So you know what a CRT is, for example. And I could tell you, let's do a campaign on that. And you can come back with it not only looking beautifully, but it's also technically correct.
Yeah, that's awesome. As far as like results that have come through, what have those looked like?
Oh gosh, I was wondering that myself, because last time I looked, it was a 1,600 ROI.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I haven't put a pen to it lately because I've been busy with building out my office and all the things that have going on in my life. But it is very much more. It's a very high return on investment.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you have a full team now too. When we first started working together, it was just you in the office.
Right.
Yeah. Walk me through that thought process of growing a team? Because that's something that we get quite a bit with our agents and advisors is, we have some that want to recruit, some that want to hire staff. And there's always that decision of, okay, is it time? Am I ready? Should I even make that jump to hire somebody else? What was that like for you?
Well, I agree with all those objections and concerns, and then those are valid. I think that I felt that too. And it was one of those, like the cart before the horse, right? Like, do you hire before you're producing, or do you produce and then hire? So those are all very real objections. I decided to invest in myself and in my practice, and in doing so, hired staff because I had to leverage myself. I was working so much that it was like, I simply can't get to all of this. Things are falling through the cracks. So it was an investment, again, in my practice to hire somebody of high quality. I had to make sure, that this person was going to be able to be my right hand and be able to do literally anything and everything. And also be, I'm someone who's like, if you have a better way, or if you have in a way that we can improve upon efficiency, I'm all ears. So it's not like it's my way or the highway. It's a collaboration that comes with time. But I think finding the right person who wants to grow with you is important, and who also has, some skill set in the industry or with people. I mean, because again, this is relationships.
Yeah, I like that. What was the order that you hired people? So there was marketing. We started working together. And then it was an assistant. Was that the next hire?
Yes, I had an assistant, a virtual assistant. This was back in, coronavirus days. So that was totally appropriate and acceptable. And she leveraged me in ways that was extremely helpful. And then I also hired a second virtual assistant who was also going to college to become an advisor himself. And both of them worked really well together until it kind of didn't. And that's okay. You know, we're all human and things change and life evolves. And so now I have somebody else that's taking more of a full-time role
Mhm.
and kind of has her eye on all the balls because sometimes they were getting dropped.
Mhm.
So, and then of course I've hired my daughter, who that's been a really fun experience, is just watching her grow into that position. And I see us being like a mother-daughter team once she gets up and running.
Yeah.
So what that looks like, I don't know. Would she be a sub-advisor or a planner? Or I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
But sky's the limit.
Yeah. I mean, she's such a rock star too. I mean, just
I don't know where she gets
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, definitely doesn't run in the family, right?
No.
No, that's awesome. With as many life insurance agents that are out there, financial advisors, how have you been able to differentiate yourself in the marketplace? I mean, I like so for everybody that's watching this, so I was able to go, Kara just opened her new office. Was that 2 months ago? A month and a half ago, something like that?
2 months. Yes.
Yeah, and I was able to attend the ribbon cutting ceremony, the grand opening, and Kara has raving fans. I mean, the people that were showing up to that event they couldn't say enough good things about Kara, everything that she has going on. How have you been able to set yourself apart with these clients, with the prospects that have come through, and really position yourself as something unique out there in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think a pivotal point for me was 2017 when we had our wildfires. And as tragic as that was, it was kind of a game changer because my own sister lost her house.
Mhm.
And it was one of those things where you don't know what you don't know in terms of she had no idea how her homeowner's policy was going to respond. She bought based on price.
Mhm.
So at that moment, my community was kind of frozen because everyone was affected, whether, you know, directly or indirectly. So I decided to give back to my community in the only way that I can, and that's with my education, my expertise. So I started gifting the book, The Power of Zero by David McKnight. And I think I've gifted that to maybe 300 families by now.
Mhm.
So it's just leading with intention and integrity and heart and just doing the right thing when nobody's watching. And I care about everybody. And so sometimes to my detriment, sometimes I'm giving away, you know, the farm.
Yeah.
But I always try to tell people honestly, like what you have is working based on what it is you say that you want, but I also know I can improve upon it. So just again, leading with my heart and just doing the right thing and being honest and vulnerable and holistic is another key piece.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the things that you said I absolutely love is that relationship-based approach and providing value. That's one of the things that I see a lot of people falling short on is they want clients, they want new prospects, but they're not willing to they just want to trip across a layup prospect without providing any value first, without setting yourself apart. And when you do that, it sets you up as almost not necessarily a product pusher, but you get into that price shopping sort of mentality where
Right.
if somebody just wants a life insurance policy, well, who's cheaper? But if you're providing value right out the gate, it's like, okay, well, I know Kara's going to do the right thing for me. She's already shown how much she cares about me, what her expertise is, and so moving forward is that next best step. As far as different solutions or different hot topics out there that you're seeing with those clients and prospects, what are you kind of seeing at the ground level there?
Well, I like to educate clients about retirement planning, right? How we've been taught to believe the 401ks and the IRAs are the coveted retirement plan. But if you think about it, you know, they're tax deferred. And I explain to the clients, like you're kicking the can down the road and you're adding money to the can. And at the end of the road, you've got Uncle Sam holding out his hand and the taxes by percentage are going up. So when I talk about that, it's kind of one of those where it's like people think like, why have I never thought of this before? Because it's a concept, again, you're not going to find at a bank or a brokerage house. They just simply don't talk to it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was working with the client the other day. One of my famous case studies is she was contributing 15% in her 401k, company matched dollar for dollar to 4. So I redirected the 11% inside of a life insurance policy and explained to her that she has accessibility. She doesn't have limits in contribution or income. And it was going to change her retirement income by over, gosh, I think it was close to $8 million.
Wow.
By
Awesome.
just redirecting what she was already saving.
That's awesome. Where a couple of different questions. Number one is where did you get that client from? Do you remember?
Oh gosh. Gosh, I honestly don't remember where she came in because
Yeah.
I mean, they come in very different funnels. So maybe the Power Zero book.
Yeah.
And then as you know, since then I collaborated on a different book, The Holistic Retirement Plan. And then, as I mentioned, when we first started speaking, I'm writing my solely authored book. So
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. Is it when
thank-
you're presenting these concepts to clients, I mean, like that client, would be a great example. is it difficult to get them to understand? I like there's an education gap, right? There's everything that they've been told up until this point. Is that a big mental hurdle that they have to get over? Or do you sometimes get that like, hey, this looks too good to be true? Is this actually real? Like what does that look like for these clients?
Well, certainly there are those objections because again, they haven't ever heard of it from anybody else before. And they probably, I mean, most often they come to me with a financial advisor. I mean, I always say most successful people do have a financial advisor.
Yeah.
But just like if you got a terminal illness from your primary care physician, would you seek a second opinion from a specialist? And that's
Yeah.
what I like to think of myself as.
Mhm.
And so I do provide, the books I think help because it's not just me saying it. It's also like a book that's been published. Also white papers help a lot. And just industry documents that I think speak to the concept and not necessarily to the company or product. I think it's really important to just get them exposed to the idea before you give them, a proposal that they may be still confused, they say no to.
Gotcha. I like that. What let's say you've got, an agent or advisor who's watching this right now. And they're kind of at a tipping point in their practice where they're seeing some success, but they want to get to that next level. What's some general advice that you would give them to be able to grow their revenue, scale their practice? I know it's a pretty broad, open-ended question, but what sort of advice would you give agents and advisors who are looking to take that next step?
I think invest in your practice. I think, the marketing is huge. And I think that that's that's kind of where it all started for me was when you started doing all the outreaches. Cause I don't have the capacity to do that for myself.
Mhm.
So I really think just, getting out of your comfort zone, which you've pushed me out several times is uncomfortable, but it is where the magic happens.
Yeah, I like that. So marketing is definitely key. What about in terms of being able to provide the right solutions to clients? What are some of the what? Because I know you really well at this point, right? And so I know your expertise. I know how well you're able to serve clients. For the agent or advisor who is looking to expand their knowledge and get deeper into the industry, what are some good ways for them to be able to learn about those solutions and to learn about those advanced planning strategies that you have?
Even though I've been in practice for 23 years, I still have a coach, because even professional athletes have coaches. And your coach, my coach is obviously your dad, Rick, who has, several years in the industry, but also he's a, Juris Doctorate, CFP, and then has a master's degree in accounting. So he's pretty brilliant. And so I think just always sharpening your pencil because things do change and evolve. And I think it's surrounding yourself with people that are successful that you can lean into when you need help. Like, in fact, just this week, I reached out to two very, very successful advisors through Advisors Excel and just was saying like, I'm having a hard time closing this one case. What am I doing wrong? And so I think it's that collaboration and that camaraderie as well. And to just be vulnerable. And it's okay to say, like, I'm having a hard time with this. Can somebody help me with that? So maybe making, themselves part of a networking group with other professionals or, seeking some advice from the successful agents in their area.
Yeah, I like that.
Or even out of the area. Out of the area is even better because then you don't have competition.
Yeah. I like that. That reminds me of one of my first mentors in the business. His name is Bob Corsetto. We're actually working with him now. He's 87 years old. And so I met him probably, man, this is back when I was a regional case designer for Penn Mutual. So 11-ish years ago. And one of the first things that he taught me is like, hey, you've got to play to your strengths and make your weaknesses irrelevant.
Right.
And that's stuck with me ever since he said that, to where it's like, okay, I don't have to be good at everything.
Right.
But I do need to be able to pull in the right partners and the right players in order to be successful. And that's where, like on my side, Joe, like Joe's been able to plug a lot of gaps where my entrepreneurial brain is like, hey, shiny object over here, shiny object over there. So I like to chase all these different things. And Joe's able to come in and plug these gaps and help me slow down and stay focused. So absolutely love that approach. With, coming up towards the end of the year, what do you have on the horizon in terms of, either initiatives or, focuses of what you want to accomplish before the end of the year?
Well, I think what we talked about was leading with tax planning because now is the time, right? And we need to do things by the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And I think that gives a client a track or a time frame to operate within, because otherwise they always say, well, I should do this, I should do that. And I always say, well, don't be a shithead.
Yeah, I like that.
And let's get focused and, put this plan into place. And so I think the tax planning is a great way to, get them to at least have a meeting. right? Because
Yeah.
they sometimes don't realize they even have a problem until then you show them like and this happens where even if a client comes to me with $100,000 or like $1 billion, most of them have 80 to 90% in that tax deferred bucket. So again, it's just that education.
Yeah, I like that. So one of the things or one of the recent ones that you had was you were invited in by a group of CPAs to present to
Yes.
them on tax planning. Is that intimidating when you get into that conversation with these individuals who are supposed to be the, leading tax planners, or what does that look like for you from like a mental and emotional state?
Well, I was certainly flattered and honored, and was excited to just have the opportunity. And I went in there really well prepared and just talked to them through a different lens than what they currently look through. Oftentimes their input equals output. That's just the way they are. Like, that's just the way they're wired, where I'm looking at the input, how do we change it to positively impact the output? And I just gave them some ideas that they didn't realize. Like I said, capital gains are voluntary. And they're like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And so I said, there are things you can do on the onset of selling a highly appreciated asset that can actually sell or save capital gains. And so they just simply didn't know some of the strategies and ideas. But from the feedback that I've received, I already have 2 CPAs who have personally become clients. And then I have them saying that they're probably I'm going to be their referral source for, the outside financial service, piece.
Dude, that is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah,
I
I'm really
love
excited
it.
about that.
How did you, with that group of, excuse me, with that group of CPAs, how did you get invited in to present to them in the first place?
So I would say networking is a huge piece that I haven't mentioned, and I do that quite a bit. A huge part of my chamber locally, and then also in another city that's about 10 minutes north of me. And then I co-founded WOW, which is Women of Windsor. And so just to be out there in that space, I was invited into a CPA forum that I think there was 85 CPAs in this meeting. And I then just did a reply all email, and I just said, I'm looking for a CPA that will, I can refer to with confidence, and that's going to be collaborative with me, and that's taking new clients. Because that's the other thing I found is they're not always taking new clients, or the client isn't in their sweet spot. So understand what they're looking for as well, so that we can create a mutually beneficial relationship. And they were the first ones to reply.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So how do you, with the marketing efforts, so we've got LinkedIn going, we've got sales funnels, the nurturing sequences, but you do a really good job mixing in-person events as well. How do you juggle that, and I guess, how do you decide where to allocate and focus your time when it comes to that kind of stuff?
Well, it's something I enjoy. I mean, I'm a social person, so I enjoy, and these are people I enjoy spending time with. And so I have a goal of trying to attend some type of networking, whether that's a lunch or a chamber event or a mixer of some kind once a week. So again, people are just seeing my face and I'm just talking and just being me. And that just kind of just generates business, because this is what happens. So I think networking is important. And then having something that people can rely on that you're going to hold, meaning I'm going to hold this women's workshop once a quarter, and then I'm going to hold women's events once a month. And so just kind of having that upcoming event schedule so that people can say, well, I can't make this one, but I can make that one. And then of course, my feedback there is, even if you can't come, because if you did come, it's going to be general, right? If you do a meeting with me, it's going to be more specific. So I'd actually even encourage people to just simply meet one-on-one.
Yeah.
But time and capacity is always a challenge. So you just have to be careful with what you say yes to. Yeah.
Is it, when it comes to like finding those networking events, what's your typical go-to in order to find like something that's already going on that you can kind of plug into, as opposed to creating your own?
Well, I think Facebook events has a lot of, in your area, if you just logged into that, you'll see things that are around you. And then I think getting involved in the community and being part of the chamber, and you have to go into that with the intention of, I'm just giving back, right? Not trying to receive anything, but that ultimately does happen just because you are donating your time and your resources. So I would encourage anybody to just look within their own community and see what's making a difference. For me, again, with the fires, first responders is a big part of my heart, and, the heroes, and putting together programs for them specifically, because that's a whole different set of, financial planning, but also emotional support. So, I just get connected.
Yeah, I like that. With like you mentioned, like getting in with like the first responders and stuff. How did you originally get connected with the first responders?
Well, I have a very lifelong family friend who was a captain and then a union president, and I worked on his own personal plan. And one meeting, his wife started to get emotional, and she was like, "You have no idea. This is something I worry about every single day." And now I have a little bit more peace of mind when he goes out and fights fire, that if something, heaven forbid, happened, my daughter and I will be okay.
Yeah.
So, and it just was like, okay, what does that look to replicate that, and to give back again in a way that I can. And it's not necessarily with the firefighters because they're busy fighting fire. It's the loved ones that are at home worried about their safety.
Yeah.
So creating a closed book event on Facebook where all the, partners, domestic partners, spouses, whatever, can see, just posts and different things. I think that's kind of where that started.
Yeah, no, I like that. What's going back to something we talked about a little bit earlier, where you were saying you had to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. But I mean, you've done an excellent job with getting out of your comfort zone and being willing to mix things up. Has that been difficult, getting on video and going out and presenting? Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, sure. I mean, again, that comfort zone's a safe place. And when you're on video or in front of people, I mean, I got in my own way. I was just telling myself things that aren't true.
Yeah.
But also, I remember my daughter telling me like, "Hey, stop talking to my best friend like that." And it was kind of like, "Oh, you're right. I shouldn't be so mean to myself because I'm better than what I'm telling myself that I am." So it is just kind of getting out of your own headspace and just doing it. And the more you do it, the better you get comfortable. And the more comfortable you get, the just more effectiveness it has.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the things that I would recommend to everybody in the industry is don't be your own worst enemy when it comes to that stuff.
Right.
There's anytime you start doing things out of your comfort zone, whether it's getting on video or starting any sort of outbound marketing process, it's going to be difficult. Like, especially when you're going out and sending messages online, you never know what time of the day you are contacting somebody. I mean, their dog could have just died. They could be having the worst day ever. I had a message come back to me on LinkedIn about 2 weeks ago where somebody was telling me that, that I'm only going to be fit to be a Walmart greeter and I should quit my job and all this kind of stuff. And that's one of those things that maybe 4 or 5 years ago would have affected me and just kind of thrown me off for the rest of my day. But it just takes practice realizing that, okay, as you get out there, as you start marketing yourself more, as you start putting yourself out there, you're going to come across people like that they're just negative people. There's a saying that I like that's yeah, you could be the sweetest peach in the orchard, but some people just don't like peaches. And so that's something that you got to realize in your practice. How do you manage the emotional state of the negative parts of the business? I mean, because it's going to be a roller coaster no matter what. You've got down months, you've got, cases that fall through. What are some of the ways that you manage your emotional and mental state throughout those ups and downs?
Well, and it is that, I mean, even for me, it's still. So, in fact, just the other day, I got a letter that somebody changed the agent on an existing policy for one that I wrote originally. And I was like, "Oh, like how, what?" So I actually reached out to him and his wife, and I said, "I am so disappointed to lose you as a client, but I also am a work in progress and want to learn from this missed opportunity. So can you share with me what I did or didn't do to make you want to move this account?" And he actually immediately called me and he's like, "It was nothing, it's not personal at all, nothing to do with you." Like, so explained himself in a way that I was like, okay, that's true. Like, it has nothing to do with who I am. It's where they were going. And so I think to not take it personal, because most often it's not, it's often about them and not necessarily about me. But it is hard. It's hard when you look at, oh, they unsubscribed from my list. Like, how dare they? They must be temporarily insane.
Yeah.
So I think just, and then I also do have other people that have come to me like, "I've been getting your email for years, and now's the time that I want to focus." And so I think it's just nurturing takes time. And so it's not a quick, easy overnight result. You just have to keep plugging at it and keep doing the right thing. And they will surface when it's their time.
Yeah. No, I like that. One of my favorite clips that I recorded with a conversation that you and I had was probably about a year ago, where we were talking about two individuals that reached out to you, I think within about a week. One guy reached out after being on your list for over a year. And he's like, "Hey, my wife and I have term policies that are about to expire. We're 64 years old. We need to look at converting these to permanent policies. Can you help us?" And that was somebody that they had never reached out in any capacity, just
Right.
got the nurturing emails. And then there was another guy who reached out who you said that you knew before you even went independent, who had a big real estate portfolio. He was looking for financial planning advice, tax planning. And after being on your list for a year, year and a half, he's like, hey, now it's time to move forward. And I think
Right.
that's one of the things that, I mean, all of us get a little bit short-sighted when it comes to what it takes to do the marketing. We're always looking at the front end where it's like, okay, I want to get that quick win. I want to capture that low-hanging fruit.
Mhm.
But if somebody's got a lot of money or they're making a lot of money, it's going to take a lot of time to build up that relationship and nurture that person before they're ready to move forward. There just isn't that urgency, or they don't realize how important this is to their financial peace of mind. So it's a consistent, steady effort. Yes, definitely fill up that front end, come
Mhm.
across those quick wins, but don't forget that nurturing process at the same time. What are some of the ways that you are able to build a relationship with your prospects and clients to create those raving fans that you have?
I think it's to come from a place of abundance. I don't necessarily, I mean, I would love to work with everybody that I'm proposing, but I don't, they need they need me more than I need them, if that makes sense. I don't mean to be very egotistical when I say that. I'm just saying, like, my solutions will generate results
Mm,
for them, and it's going to better what they're currently doing. And I can show them that in numbers. I can show them that in graphs and pictures, whatever, however they want to consume the information. I can improve upon their situation. So I think it's just having that confidence and knowing what it is you're doing is in their best interest, even if it doesn't generate revenue.
yeah. No, I like that. What's I mean, I'm kind of flipping this a little bit for anybody that's on the fence about coming on board with Trend Advisor. What advice would you give them in making that decision?
Go for it. And stick with it, though. Again, it's not something that you're going to see results in, a month or two. I don't remember how long it took before I really started to see traction. And I remember for a couple times I'm like, well, maybe we should pause, maybe we should stop. Like, because you do start to, like, you want that instant gratification. You want those sales to come in to pay for the market. Like, you want all that, yes, but it does take time.
Mm, yeah, I like that. I like that. Is there is there anything else that you would want to share with everybody while we're here together? Anything about growing your practice, hiring a team, solutions, setting yourself apart, events? I mean, what other advice would you give to everybody that we haven't covered yet?
I just really think that you need to get all of their information. And I use the doctor analogy a lot, like I did previously. I say, if you are coming to me to convert your term to permanent policy, I can help you with that. But just like you go to your doctor for a specific ailment, they ask you about your overall medical history. Likewise, I'm going to ask you about your overall financial information, and that will uncover so much more than just the term policy or permanent policy, whatever it is that they're coming to me initially for. Is like, this is my approach is holistic, and I'm going to look at all things so I can appropriately prescribe a remedy.
Mhm. I like that a lot. Man, I don't want to eat too much of your time, but again, I really appreciate you doing this, Kara.
My
Hopefully,
pleasure.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm hoping that it helps somebody that's watching this to, where they may feel a little bit stuck in their practice, or they're trying to figure out, okay, there's that next level up here, but I need to get to it. So, is this something that you'd be open to doing again here in a couple months?
Sure. And, as you know, I've talked with many individual advisors. They can call me, they can email me. I'm happy to have those one-off conversations.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Well,
Absolutely.
thanks again, Kara. And I appreciate everybody for joining us on this.
My
If,
pleasure.
if anybody does have any questions, are you okay if I send out your contact information?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Okay, awesome. I'll send that out. Everybody else knows how to find me, and then we'll just go from there.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Kara.
My pleasure. Have a good day.
All right, take care.
Bye.